Here it is. This is the match you've all been waiting for. The San Francisco Shock up against the Philadelphia Fusion Hex. Thank you for joining me, as always. Well, maybe I should thank you, maybe I shouldn't. I don't know. It's been too long at this point. But the #1 seed versus #2 in everybody's minds in the North American region. And I'm excited. Everybody at home is excited. This match is going to be close, and it does count for a little bit of seeding as well, Hex.
Yeah, you don't have to thank me for joining you. There's nowhere else I would rather be. This is the match we've all been waiting for this year. Yes, some seeding matters. They could drop from 1 to 2. I think even a 4 seed is possible. But no matter what, both these teams are going to have a first round bye. Of course, that seeding will matter in the selection process after the first round bye. So obviously they want to win. But I think it's more than that for both of these teams. They haven't played each other in well over a year. And those were different rosters, different times, different metas. It doesn't matter. But these are the teams that have been the strongest teams in the region all year. And look, these rosters are stacked. It's just insane the rankings a lot of these players put up.
Yeah, look at the healers. It's just disgusting. Alarm, rank 1 healing for Bap. Astro, rank 1 healing for Lucio 2. There's a reason why these two were so hotly contested in the off-season. Philadelphia Fusion managed to get their hands on them, and they've been looking mighty clean.
Well, I mean, you look at the tanks in that lineup too. I mean, they have the fewest deaths per 10, largely because of the revamped support line of the Philly team. I think that is what taken them to the next level. Of course, when you think about the Philadelphia Fusion, you think of Carpe on DPS. Hisu has come in as well. Sato and Fury, the tank line. Alarm, one of my rookie of the year. I mention it every time I say his name. I think I'm contractually obligated to at this point. But a little bit of a surprise as Boombox is going to be playing support. We theorized perhaps he's been grinding the Brig.
Yeah, I would have thought so. You'd want Lucio, you want Astro for Lucio, so bringing in Boombox for Brig will make a whole lot of sense. Let's have a look what Hisu has to say, though, against this matchup.
I think us and me both good, and us has carry ability, but we are gonna block shock. Each will be fun match.
Well, surprise, surprise, saying Ansan is the carry. Yeah, I mean, when he puts his hands on Widowmaker or Ashe, it's super easy to carry a game on a hero like that, especially at the highest levels like Ans can play them.
Well, breaking news, Ans is a very good hit scan player. I mean, if you've been watching at all, I mean, this San Francisco roster just has a wealth of talent. It's unfair a lot of the times is the word we use to describe the San Francisco Shock whenever we see them. And, Ans, the man himself, also had something to say about this matchup coming up.
팬분들이 기대를 많이 해주시는 만큼 더욱더 많이 열심히 준비를 해서 좋은 모습 보여드리도록 하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Okay, not the spiciest thing I've ever heard, but still giving respect to the other team.
Yeah, you let the play do the talking. I mean, if San Francisco's going to prepare more than usual, it's like, have they just been 3-0ing people by just phoning it in? Are they that good? And I mean, part of me thinks, yeah. Part of me really thinks that, yes, they are. And you can just see it. It bears out on paper. A lot of #1s here on the San Francisco ranks here, Jaws.
Yeah, Striker rank 1 in final blows. Just final blows, like not even, on X hero. Nope, just final blows. Striker is that good. Tracer seems like the perfect hero for him right now, and luckily enough, of course, we're in the meta to do it. And Rascal too, although we're not seeing him in the lineup today. Rank 1 final blows for Echo as well. Not too surprising, to be honest with you. Let's have a look at the lineup today, though. Ansan, Sniper, and Striker rounding out the DPS. We've got Smurf and Choi in tank, of course, Violet, and Rascal, because guess what? Rascal can play everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, you are going to see Rascal in the support line today. It's very similar to what I believe New York did last night, putting Haxel on the support line too. So Rascal can play everything. I mean, he can play the Baptiste. Maybe he's probably going to be their Brigitte player, so they have the flexibility there. I mean, look, you can put anyone on this team apparently on support. They could all play it even when they had Architect. Our very first map of the day is going to be Control. Then we'll move on to Hanamura, Rialto, and Kings Row if needed. Of these first 4 maps, Jaws, San Francisco is undefeated on all of them except for Ilios. So Philadelphia is going to need a hot start. I mean, like, they don't have a great record on Ilios. I believe they're 1-2 overall, but it's the only map in the first 4 that San Francisco has lost all year. So you want Philly to come out hot and maybe steal the first one here.
I'm laughing, but it's just absurd. Yeah, we haven't lost any maps here. Well, Ilios, whatever, man. It's just a throwaway for us. It's just kind of absurd how we're seeing this just before the Summer Showdown fully kicks off. 2, we're going to Lighthouse, Hex.
To the
Probably
Lighthouse.
one of the scariest points for some fast engages. Please say we see Tracer. Of course we are. Strikers on the field. Aren't he going to play legs, really? We saw a little big legs yesterday. Will we see it again? Not entirely sure. But it's interesting to see the different comps that every team has been running out with. And it really does feel one of the more varied metas, because with no hero pools and going into no Summer Showdown with no hero pools, you can have teams like San Francisco Shock and Philadelphia Fusion flex out their players according to what they actually want to play on the certain maps, which is one of the reasons why these teams are so good.
Well, I want to look at the Philly support line, too, because this is something that actually we didn't think about in the brief moments we were talking about this, is that Funny Estro's Brigitte was not that good, so you take him out, you put Alarm on the Brigitte, and then Boombox comes in to play the Baptiste, so something we weren't necessarily expecting, but makes a lot of sense in retrospect.
Just a little bit of a skirmish. Oh, Jesus. You got to start it like this, Hans, with a headshot straight onto Carpe. Not bad. Now we can just sit up here basically for free. Of course, Alarm and Boombox are going to be on the Brig and the BAP. Doesn't mean Striker. Doesn't mean well, Striker and Carpe are going to be having a tough time taking each other out with the armor packs being thrown out. Shot with the initial kill. Doesn't mean they get to take a priority position on the point and get the first cap.
Hisu's just going to get outranged by this Widow, so it's going to be difficult for him to really be able to play and use all the utility that's in Ash's kits, because you don't want to go too far over shields. You want to just get the dynamite in and wait for it.
Oh my God!
Twice.
Again? See, this is what Carpe wants to do as well, right? He wants to be able to get on top of Arns to pressure him out, to make sure he's not looking at the front line, because otherwise he's just going to continue to do this. Alarm says goodbye, goes straight back to spawn, but the thing is with Carpe trying to go on these flanks, Hex, is that not only does Arns have grapple, but he also has Striker to kind of help him out too, plus Rascal with the armor pack. It's why Brig is so good right now. Striker looking for a pulse in the back line, he's going to get spotted, has to retreat.
And it's just going to be very difficult to even pressure out Ons here now, especially with the sights, and he's able to get to the super high ground. It's only going to be Hisu who can maybe put a little bit of pressure on him, but there's no way a Tracer can get up here. They're not running a Diva.
Oh, again! Yeah, and he did this post bomb onto Hisu as well. Fight's done, fight's over. Oh my word! I bet Chip's just slamming his head into the desk right now. Well, I'm not sure. Actually, he might be cheering, to be honest with you, because if he sees this kind of level Widow play, like, there's no way he wants to play up against it.
Look, it's early, but scoped crit access right now is 78%. 78%.
It's pretty good.
Hits.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. He's got 4 critical hits scoped in, and he also has 4 final blows. So he's hitting the headshots.
I think just to actually make something happen, but Choi is still sitting on the flux. Fury's gone down fairly early and not been able to get too much ult charge off. Doesn't mean he hasn't got his flux ready yet. Carpe ends up going down to Violet. 90% now for the Shock. As the Philadelphia Fusion need to move in and actually make a play. Hisu can send Bob to point, and that's exactly what he's going to do. Supercharger down for Smurf as they just corral the Philadelphia Fusion into this small corner. Smurf is going to take out Hisu's Bob as OT can't even get triggered. The rally from Alarm was so close to getting there. The Shock just held the Fusion at bay in that tight corner for the entirety of the map, just relying on Arns getting the picks.
The only one who touched the point the entire time was Bob. Oh, the San Francisco Shock putting out a dominant performance, and you know I wanted this to be close, but I think I've said this when we're casting Philadelphia and when we're casting San Francisco, that Philadelphia doesn't have the same kind of killer instinct and dominance that San Francisco. San Francisco is the team that everyone wants to be. They are the reigning champions. Philadelphia has played really well in the regular season, but against the San Francisco Shock, if that match is any indication, they are simply outclassed. Not a single elimination for the Philadelphia Fusion. Carpe, 3 deaths.
2 of them were insta-kills as well. Headshots from Arns. He's going to stick on the Widowmaker, of course he is.
Why wouldn't you?
Same
Why
comps
wouldn't you?
for both sides. It's going to be a little bit more difficult though. Carpe can use this high ground here on the right-hand side, where we're looking right now, to skirt around and hopefully pick off Arns, or at least pressure him out just a little bit. It's a nice little angle. I mean, this is the point where they want them, right? Arns is behind shields, although Hisu is on a bit of a flank. I wonder if they send Striker after him to harass him a little bit. Fusion, they're going to lose 1. Boombox has gone down to Arns already. A lot of healing now missing. The point is unlocked, and the Shock are in position to take it. Attempted boop into the well by Alarm. But Boombox is going to come back, Hex, but the problem is the Philadelphia Fusion are on the wrong side of the map. They're actually on Shock's side, and Shock do end up capping the point as well. Boombox is going to have a very tough time actually getting back. Looks like Carpe might want to try and escort him through. Sado takes the kill onto Striker, but is it going to be enough? The window comes out as well. A beautiful rock and a couple of spheres will finish off Fury, as Violet keeping the rest of his team alive near this point. Fusion almost found the recap, but the Shock are holding firm.
Ans's just putting on a clinic right now. Another headshot onto Hisu. He's missed a couple, so his scoped critical accuracy is down all the way to 63%. One death so far for San Francisco. It was Striker.
Historically, Shock against the Philadelphia Fusion as well, a 4-0 all-time, which is ridiculous. Remember, these rosters have gone through iterations, yes, but still a phenomenal scoreline against Philadelphia Fusion. Looking into the last couple of years, a kind of a phenomenal team. This is probably one of their best iterations yet, but you could easily also say the same for the Shock.
Yeah, very similar all-time franchise records. I think they're sitting at 3rd overall, almost tied for 3rd overall all-time franchise records. But a lot of that owes to Philadelphia having a much stronger Season 1 than the San Francisco Shock.
Carpe attempting to take out Arndt, but it's not going to work. Sight's been activated as well now, so he can spot the flankers. Carpe is up in the sky with the pulse bomb, but you can see Arndt being rather sneaky. Oh, the coach gun straight into Striker. A 1-for-1 trade as Striker accidentally kills himself. That should have been rewarded to Hisu, but there it is. A stick onto the front line. Arndt is actually right on top of his main tank and takes the pulse bomb damage. It's going to be the first time Fusion actually capped the point as Shock are forced away. However, Violet's going to activate the window and they've charged in with the rally as well. Smurf taking out Striker is a good start, but the Philadelphia Fusion still managed to cap the point.
They're going to get grabbed right now and no Fortify available, so that Orisa's going to go sky high.
Yeah, but there's no one actually to finish up any of the damage there. Superchargers have gone down as well for both sides. Shock's one's a little bit more protected, but Philadelphia Fusion aren't giving the good up just yet. Choi and Smurf end up falling down. This should be it for the defensive fight for Fusion. Shock are going to have to reset.
It's time to head back. Carpe's very first kill came during that fight, really opened it up with a nice pulse bomb to start off that. They now have 4. It's 4-16 Philadelphia in control of the point. It's going to make things much more difficult for Ons. Also, Hisu has switched to the Widow, which I think is the correct choice. You don't even have to win this duel. You just have to put some pressure on Ons so he feels that he can't just go wherever he wants. Maybe just hit a body shot here. Just existing as Widow is often enough to deter the other Widow from just really running over your team pretty constantly. But San Francisco at 80%. And they're going to have window.
Threading the needle. He tried to get the jump shot on Carpe as well. Can he click his head? Have to check the kill feed. Doesn't look like it. Striker's having a dance with death. Alarm is having a hard time actually killing him off, though. You can see Striker just running him down with the armor packs. He has got the pulse bomb too. Fury finishes him off, but this might just be it for the Fusion defense of their points. Smurf also takes down Boombox, and now it's just a party in that extremely small mini health pack room. The Shock will end up capping the point once again, and this is it. Hisu has got just the weight of the world on his shoulders right now, trying to contain Arns.
It's very difficult, and also I believe that San Francisco is going to do a little bit of a forward hold to try to slow them down and make sure that Philadelphia has to use ults coming in. They do force out the early grab. Choyona's got his grab up. He can just grab him off the point.
I think Fury just fluxed near his own spawn.
Did he do it? Was it a fat finger?
I think it must have been. I'll have to check the replays. There's the biggest flux ever, though, straight up to the skies, and now Arndt has a perfect firing line. Boombox's immortality field does go down as OT has been triggered. At least Fusion can fight back on the point, but they're going to have to deal with Smurf's supercharger. Arntt's getting the damage boost, an insta-kill onto Fury, and now the sights have been activated as well. Boombox sent very low, finished off by a body shot, and Striker 2, Shock, are going to easily run over the Fusion on their final defense. OT can be triggered once again by Carpe, but he hasn't got a recall. The Shock are going to take Ilios 2-0.
What a performance by the San Francisco Shock. They create all the space. Look, it's easy to talk about this as being just a Widow performance, but let me give you the final numbers here. 13 eliminations, 11 final blows for Ants, ends at a 50% scoped critical accuracy. Half of his shots were hitting brain pans there, and they had no answer for it, did the Philadelphia Fusion. They will end the map of Ilios with only 5 final blows as a team.
That is ridiculous. You wouldn't think it would be Philadelphia Fusion on the other side of that one, but they can still bounce back, that is for sure. I want to see if they're going to put any of their substitutes in. Maybe have Funny Astro come in on the Lucio and try and get that speed boost on top of their tanks and maybe subdue Arns just a little bit. We're going to have to wait and find out, though. We're going to jump to a quick break. Map number 2, up soon.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. The Overwatch League is brought to you by HyperX. Unleash your style, unleash your fury, with HyperX Fury Memory. And by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome back. That was destruction by the Shock. Someone stop Arns, please. This is getting ridiculous. The Philadelphia Fusion go 2-0 down on Ilios as the Shock just refused to let up on the gas pedal. A little bit absurd. We saw Philadelphia Fusion with sparks of brilliance some of the time. It did feel just like they were outclassed in the DPS slot. Hisu just couldn't stand up to the Widowmaker of Arns. It's an extremely tough job to do regardless. He was trying to play the Ashe to start off the game, Hex, but switching over to the Widowmaker, he didn't have too much success, and it was just about clicking on the head. He had more crit kills. This is Arns. He had more crit kills than Philly had kills. So, yeah, digest that as you will.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult for Philly because I think their best Widow and their best Tracer are the same player, and you can't run the two heroes at once, unfortunately. And maybe
if only
Overwatch
we could
2.
clone Carpe.
Yeah, Carpe and the Philadelphia Fusions. So yeah, we're gonna go to the replay and see exactly what happened here with Fury trying to flux. It's just a blind halt all the way back to the door, and Fury, he gets halted off and has to flux to save his life.
Oh man, I thought like we both said, I thought that was a fat finger, but wow,
I just heard it. Yeah, I heard the voice line. I didn't know exactly where it went off.
Yeah, that is what a way to burn one of the best ults in the game.
That's gotta be like
a halt.
That's just gotta be map practice though. Of like, if I hit this halt right here, how long does it take? Let me look at the clock. Let me start the stopwatch. If I halt right here, I could pull someone off. That's not an accident. There's no way that's an accident. Not knowing the San Francisco team. So just a ridiculous play. I've never seen anything like that before. Just to add insult to injury to what San Francisco just did to the Philadelphia Fusion. Philadelphia, I do believe, is a team that you got to be worried about getting demoralized too. I mean, I think even Carpe is susceptible to that, because what just happened you kind of have to have a short memory and just forget about that. Look, it didn't go great. That was a great Widow performance. We can move on. We'll do something different because if they let that map get to their heads, this is going to be 3-0. Quick 3-0.
Man, I'm looking at the map though, Hex, and his Hanamura. What a perfect map for Arns to play Widowmaker here.
Yeah.
Shorter ranges though, I will say, and especially with the 2CP, it's a bit interesting on first because it can be easier to force out the Widowmaker, especially if you make a fast engagement if you're on the attack through the doors. The Widowmaker is granted a lot less space to actually get working. Maybe Carpe can, like I said before, maybe subdue Arns a little bit on the Tracer. We'd have a couple of swaps, mind you, as well. A role swap for Rascal from the support up into the DPS. And we got Moth coming in for the support.
Yeah, why don't we just bring in another all-star off the bench, and then we'll move a guy who just played support for us into a damage role. That's no problem. We're San Francisco Shock. I'm running out of words for San Francisco Shock. You know, it's embarrassing in a way, just what they have, how they built this roster. But you know, they're undefeated on Hanamura thus far this year. Rascal going over to the damage though is a little bit interesting because I think the last time we really saw him excel at damage this year anyway was on Echo. And I'm not sure Echo is great here on second point because it's this giant room to get in, unless they're going for flanks. I mean, Ans, I think you'd have to imagine, is either going to be playing Widow or Ashe here. So it'll be interesting to see what Rascal plays. It's Rascal. He can play anything, so I'm not worried about it. But I'm just trying to make that interesting. Sorry.
Oh, don't you need to say sorry? Let's have a look at the maps. Of course, you know it is Hanamura next. And yeah, maybe Rascal does jump on the Echo. Of course, he is holding the rank 1 stat for damage done on Echo, damage done per 10 on Echo at the moment. So there's a potential for it. We'll have to wait and see, of course. With Striker being out, leads me to say we're not going to see the Tracer. But
I think if you were dead set on just running Tracer, you would just keep Striker in.
Absolutely.
So yeah, there's the pros especially think very highly of Striker, think he's the best Tracer in the world, or at least one of the best Tracer v Tracers in the world. Map records here at San Francisco Shock is 5-0. Philadelphia Fusion is 3-2 on the year. Like I said, of the first 4 maps, the only one San Francisco had ever lost was Ilios. They are undefeated going through the next 4. And then I think they have a loss on Oasis if we should get to that point, if Philadelphia gives us a little bit of a different look. But it's also, if you're Philadelphia, like I said, you got to forget about it because those Widow outlier maps can happen where someone's just like in the zone and they can't do anything to miss.
Oh, definitely.
I feel Ons has those a lot, but even for Ons, that was a Widow map that was just nuts. So you just have to hope that, like, okay, maybe he'll cool off. Like, maybe a tactical pause is the order of the day, although I don't think Philadelphia would do that. Philadelphia's defense, though, is going to be Tracer Ashe. I almost called her Tracer. Yeah. Let's not do that. Team 4 might be watching at some point. Sato, Fury are going to be the tanks lines. So this is interesting. We saw this in the previous few matches, and I think Matt and Mitch did a great job of talking about how you don't really hold the front door super hard because it doesn't allow your Tracer to do anything. You have to let them in a little bit so that the Tracer has room to roam up front. You can't just hold doorway.
Well, that's exactly what they're going to do. With that Carpe. Rascal is on the May. No Aunt's Widow, but it's going to be something equally as deadly on the Ashe. Got to be careful of Carpe. One right-click Icicle from Rascal will end his life rather surely. Big rotation up onto the high ground. Carpe is still trying to find an entrance, although it's going to be fairly tough. Nice wall, actually, to split people from the point. Shouldn't matter all that much, however, though, so they just kind of move around it. Yeah, it's just more if they can catch someone and run them down. Although with no Lucio, it's a bit more difficult, I will say. Nice rotation, though, onto the point. Minute has already been burned. I don't want to see where Hisu is currently holding. You see up on the high ground here. Most of that damage getting shielded off for the time being, but still doing a fair bit of work with the Dynamite. Ends up going down to Carpe. Finally, he's managed to kill the Beast, but it doesn't matter because Sato and Alarm get roll over. An early window for Violet, and you can see everybody just huddling around it, make sure they can get as much use of it as possible. The Shock are going to secure 2 ticks and a third as well. There's no way they're going to be able to make it back from this one. And speak about the mental here, Hex. Imagine if Philadelphia Fusion actually just get rolled over here. That is going to crack mental for sure. Like 5 minute plus in the time bank going into the next point. Going into the attacking phase for you.
It's always been my concern for Philadelphia, and I mean, I'm not a sports psychologist, but they're also a team that should be 3-0ing teams that they end up going to 5 with. They can play up to opponents, but down to opponents, and I never have that concern with the San Francisco Shock. Like that, I think the Shock have the mental that everyone should aspire to. I'm just curious if think On's got a dynamite off before he died last fight, and that really swung it, but that seems like a
Blizzard
mile ago
right
now.
That is a massive immortality field, but it gets destroyed almost instantly by Violet. Furies just ran over. They instantly take the high ground and have ults to spare. They use the rally in that fight. They're going to have another window for definite, and 2 people are stuck on the low ground. Sado and Carpe are there. The pulse bomb does go off, but destroys immortality field. Smurf takes the 1v1 and kills Sado, and now 2 ticks, and a wall as well is going to stop them from entering the point. Even the Blizzard 2, they can't do anything, Hex. That's it. 4 minutes and 50 seconds for the shock as they demolish the Fusion. This is absurd. Stop. This is an official. This is not scrims.
So what I was talking about, like, so the one death that San Francisco had there was On's dying, but I think before he died, he got the dynamite off. I don't think he shot it, but I think he got it to the points. And that's what got everybody super low on Philadelphia. So even posthumously, Ons was doing damage for his team. He was the only death that San Francisco suffered. And I think that it only took him 8 eliminations to get through, or 10 total kills to get through that map. We gotta reach out and see if that's a record. Although we saw a couple super fast Hanamuras earlier today, it just seems like teams are having a really hard time playing defense on it. But I also, I forget that Rascal's probably the best Mei on this roster for San Francisco too. So yeah, just put him on Mei. She's always been good on Hanamura. You use that wall perfectly. This is looking
grim.
I was not expecting this. All right, I expected San Francisco to be the better team overall. I like their style of play, but I was expecting Philadelphia to show a little more of that Philly spirit. At least give them a fight.
Well, now there's their chance to prove it on offense. Like I just said before they even got to second point, Hex, if they get a just ridiculous time bank, if that is actually going to crack the mentals, because, everybody's been in that place in solo queue before. You have a minute left, they've got 4 or something, and it's sometimes very hard to come back into the fray, right? It's hard to get back into the game.
I'm pretty much like always trying to will my team to keep trying and keep playing, but this is a situation where I'd say GG and leave chat. I'm not that strong. I'm not that strong. Yeah, well, that's true. I don't get paid to play Overwatch.
That's true, and thank goodness for that.
Yes.
Thank goodness for that. Rascal is still on the Mei. Split defense here for the Shock as they hold high ground with the Mei, and you can see Sado sneaking around on the left-hand side with Moth. Isu's very concerned about a potential flank. Yeah, rock to the back, unfortunately. Sure, we're doing a little bit of tech there with the spheres to get on high ground.
That's such cool little tech.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's actually in Sata's like Overwatch, I forget the exact name, like the Overwatch skills workshop mode and how to do the sphere jump. It's very cool.
It's really nice. You also see on Choi Hyobin, you'll see that little shield next to his name at the bottom of the screen. You see those a lot of San Francisco Shock. Those are our role stars, our equivalent to all pros. San Francisco pulled a lot of those awards, and yeah, they brought in they still have a couple on the bench.
Trying to bait out the wall. Okay, they do manage to get 4 through, but now they just have to run. Isu is still trapped on the other side, and Smurf goes dangerously low. Carpe's going to be able to chase him down and kill him off with a quick headshot. They've lost a tank. They can get back to the point, but anchor tank going down is not a good sign for Choi. His shield isn't going to last long, and as soon as he places it down, you best believe Fusion is just going to pump it full of damage. There's the window. It's going to get a ward off, mind you, and actually we have Smurf coming back on the ball to try and get back to the point he can test a little bit quicker. Carpe's going to be able to at least cap and do a lot of damage to that Wrecking Ball. That's a lot of free ult charge for the Tracer as well. Easy chase down kill. Choi kills off Hisu. Still spawn advantage for the Fusion. The immortality field is going to go down. There's Violet now opening up the window on the front side of the point.
They're gonna blizzard this,
even the Mei has the blizzard. Yeah, exactly that. They might as well at this point. They saw the E come through. There's a big stick on the back line, but it doesn't matter at all. Carpe, I'm not entirely sure what happened to that one. Maybe got blocked. Rascal chases down Sado. That blizzard was absolutely massive and actually separates the rest of the Fusion. Carpe is extremely low. Choi gets the solo floods up in the air. As Alarm crashes back down, he just needs to survive. He's got 5% towards that rally, and that should be a guaranteed team fight. They might not even need it, in fact, as Rascal does end up going down to Boombox. They eventually cap, as Moth just touches at the last second.
But here's the absurd part. They're not going to beat San Francisco's time. San Francisco has 450 in the bank already as Philadelphia attempts their first attack, but Philadelphia actually in a really good spot here. They're going to have every ultimate online that they could possibly want. Even Carpe will get there, so that's going to be 6-0, especially because San Francisco had to change a couple of heroes. So San Francisco is only going to have to rely on rally and just pure grit.
Okay, classic Bob onto the point. Instantly gets taken down, though. Violet claims the credit. Both windows being used too. Rascal can kind of sit on high ground, do what he does best, and just wall people off. Tempted Flux from Fury to try and isolate some people. And the window as well, doing a lot of damage with those Hyperspheres. Moth does end up falling first for the shock. But Ababa at the point is going to at least pump out a lot of pressure, but it's going to get shielded off by Sado. And now Carpe can go to town in the backline as well with the damage boost. He does end up falling accidentally there to Violet, who's actually off onto the right-hand side. He's just going to get checked as well up on the high ground. Shot with a nice spawn position.
It's not quick enough.
Even the ball
it's
coming through, and yeah, it's not quick enough because at the end of the day, 2CP, you need to win at least 3 fights in a row to actually gain a semblance on the point, and a lot of people are going to get staggered as well out of the back. That was a very, very lucky bit of feet work there by Fury just to get out of the way of the wall.
And what a great reset that ends up being, too, because Philadelphia thought they had it. They threw everything they had into it. Alarm with a very nice rally, used it after Moth, and then Moth went down. But it just ends up being individual clutch plays. Violet, who I think is one of the best Baptistes in the world, I don't think there's really an argument against it, just ends up with a couple of nice kills because his damage output is second to none. And now Philadelphia is way behind on most of the important ultimates. There's going to be a Flux and a Blizzard up again for San Francisco.
Rascal, they have to be able to get him down from the high ground. Carpe's at 2 HP, mind you.
Sneaky.
Someone could just
gonna get
blow on him and he'd die, but he's going to get the Mega Pack. He's good. He's going to go to the point of pressure, I can imagine, but still has to be careful of both Arns and Rascal. Both of them have insta-kill potential. Stick on the back. Nothing happens. Immortality Field can go down for Violet, but I'm not even sure he used it. Potentially he just stuck Smurf and he was able to walk away from his supports. Or even the shield, in fact. Could have been a number of things. Stop that pulse.
It's so frustrating to try to get in on this point, just regardless. But now there's a May and the Blizzard comes out.
Then there's Blizzard. Yeah, there's no way you survive this. Absolutely not when there's a wall in the way. Plus, having the Orisa that close too, if you're the Shocks, you can just grab people back into the Blizzard if you think they're going to escape. They use their initiation tool in the Bob too in that fight, Hex. They've got Window, they've got Flux. It's very winnable, but they're going to run into Shock, who have a couple of their own.
Well, Shock is always great at managing the economy and knowing when they've won a fight without committing more to it. So it's such a difficult map to get in top right side, even when there's not a May. But now you're dealing with a May, so you have to take a long time to get in. Like, that fight took forever, right? And they get in, they get Blizzarded, but then San Francisco doesn't commit anything else. San Francisco about to have 5 more ultimates online during this fight. And Fury and Boombox are going to have to combine for something here. Carpe's done playing Tracer. He goes on to the Hanzo. I've seen Hanzo played a lot on this map.
I mean, he wasn't really doing anything on the Tracer. It's so hard to take someone down with a Pulse Bomb. So many mitigation tools, like I mentioned before. Choi almost gets dragged back in. He starts the Flux and can heal himself down in the Mega Pack, but they're actually going to chase him out. It's a good move from the Philadelphia Fusion, though. They know he's low. Choi is going to get spammed full of heals, though. And even use the kinetic grasp to make sure he can get away from any of the projectiles being launched towards him.
Yeah, I thought it was actually Choi who ended up using his grab just as a desperation move. Carpe sent back to spawn in his home map.
They've got a tick, Hex. They've got a tick and 1 minute to go.
But they only have Rally and Supercharger. I mean, you want to rally and push into your team, but you also want to supercharger and sit back and get damage, so kind of antithetical here. Maybe you rally first, get a position, and then supercharge, but San Francisco can take the fight right to him.
At Supercharge is doing a fair bit of work, but it does get destroyed. Just the rally for Fusion does force them forwards. Early Immortality Field too, mind you. This could be pretty big as Rascal is nearing this Blizzard. They do run onto the top and high ground. They're going to have to do something rather fast. A perfect boop off of Smurf too. He can't rejoin his team, and they kill off Arns as well. 15 seconds does remain, and Philadelphia Fusion are now caught between Rock and Moth. Rascal chugs out the Blizzard, finds 2. There's going to be a couple of seconds before they can trigger OT, but it looks almost impossible. Both the tanks on the low ground are going to have to do something, but they're going to get walled off and dragged off. There's no way they can touch, and the Shock are going to secure Hanamura and put themselves in match point position.
It wasn't terrible from Philadelphia. It's a decent Hanamura to go in and actually get something done. But then keeping Rascal in and being able to move him off onto the May, which May is maybe not pure meta right now. We've seen some May Reaper, but she still has her spot. One of her spots has always been Hanamura, denying that only good entry on Hanamura is top right from the offensive perspective. You get walled off, you're all in the same spot, you get blizzarded, and it was that fight where Philadelphia only had 1 ultimate and San Francisco only had 1. Philadelphia had 5 that they threw them all away. San Francisco stabilized. They were able to hold on to the points, and this is not at all how I expected things to go, but I imagine if you're in the San Francisco players room right now, they're all smiling and they all kind of expected this is how it goes. They always expect to dominate.
That's exactly what they're doing. Philadelphia Fusion currently flatlining right now. The Shock are one map away from taking this series. We're going to jump to a quick break. We'll see if the Philadelphia Fusion can bounce back.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by ZipChair Gaming, the official chair supplier of the Overwatch League, and by TeamSpeak, the official voice supplier of the Overwatch League. Welcome to our game break presented by Pringles Wavy. My name is Zoe and joining me are Costa and Reinforce. And this is the slaughter. Let's just call it let's call it how it is. San Francisco Shock is utterly dominating and is actually so much fun to watch as well. I wanted a close game, but a completely one-sided series will do as well. Before we diving into some of the replays and the highlights, Reinforce, I want you to walk us through the stylistic differences we're seeing in terms of composition and hero usage from both of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, it is exciting to watch Ants pop off on the Widowmaker and be incredible, but I am pretty disappointed by this game so far because I actually really wanted it to be close. I wanted this match to live up to the hype, and going into this match, what I brought up on the Watchpoint pre-show was that it was going to be a battle of two styles, different compositions, because if we take a look at the hero usage rate in the main melee, we can clearly see that the Philadelphia Fusion, they opted for more dive compositions. Winston is up there, D.Va is up there, Tracer is up there, while if you take a look at San Francisco, their hero usage rate in the main melee tournament was pretty much strictly double shield compositions with the Sigma and the Orisa, and that's what they do best. So I was hoping especially with the Genji changes, to see some of that really come through from the Philadelphia Fusion and to play aggressive and initiate and sort of take the game to the San Francisco Shock. What we've instead seen is that San Francisco Shock, they're just playing their own game, they're playing comfortably, and they're not being pressured by the Philadelphia Fusion at all. And as a result, Ans is just popping off and destroying the Philadelphia Fusion. And this game is not close at all.
Yeah, it's just... It feels like Philly came into this match and they weren't really ready for Arns to pop off this hub, which is kind of confusing because if you ever play against the Shock, you need to expect this. They didn't have any adaptation. They came into the first round playing Ashe, and then Arns was on Widow, and that map was an absolute slaughter. And it's really worrying. Look, from Philly, they don't seem to have any plan, or they didn't come into this with any way to stop Shock from playing. They just wanted to outplay Shock at their own game, which no one's ever been able to do. So it was a ballsy strategy, and it's not really paying off.
I'm not even sure we can call that a strat. Hoping the other team isn't popping off, that doesn't seem like a really valid strat. Kasa, I want to get your thoughts on the support lineup we're seeing from the Fusion as well. We are seeing Boombox on Baptiste and Alarm on Brig. Not what we usually see from that team. What are your thoughts on this?
I'm really perplexed by this decision by Philadelphia Fusion because we always praise Alarm. He has so many top stat categories in the Baptiste, and now they're putting him on Brig, a character that I think every other support on the Philadelphia Fusion can play. It feels like you're limiting the potential of one of your best support players. So this probably isn't the match to bring this out either or try it out. I don't really understand it, but also on the other side, we have San Francisco Shock, messing around with their support line as we have Rascal go back onto his patented Brig.
Yeah, but it's a bit different. It's a bit different. But I agree with you, Costa. But I like to give the coaches the benefit of the doubt most of the time. But this is the one instance where I just don't understand it, and I am a bit perplexed, just as you said, because even then, Funny Astro. He even got Player of the Match honors, I believe, in the last match that Philadelphia Fusion got, because he played a good Baptiste. And then you had Alarm playing the role he was comfortable in. So I am equally perplexed by this decision to field Alarm on the Brigitte. And I mean, there's probably a reason why, but I'd love to find out why.
Well, and since the San Francisco Shock just decided to make their entire team and entire game a highlight reel, it was actually really hard to find a good crunch time presented by Pringles Wavy, but we indeed found something. This is going to be educational. Costa, take it away.
This was so sick.
Yeah, this isn't a sick moment of Arns clicking on heads or Striker just killing everybody. This is actually a really cool tech, which is how Toyobin uses his left click. The left click and the little hyperspheres have a little bit of knockback on them, and he uses that to propel himself a little bit higher to get into the window as the Sigma. We've seen this before using the accretion rock, but this is the first time I've ever seen it being done this way, and it's just really cool. You can't look at this and not be like, that is awesome. So Choi just flexing even a little more. Not even the game results really has impressed me as much as this did.
He was doing it multiple times as well. He wanted to show the stream.
Yes, I hope someone's watching.
Yeah.
Now, guys, we're heading into Rialto next, and we know. I think Hex already mentioned it, Jaws as well. Unfortunately, the Fusion is a team which can get into their own head. Will they have the mental fortitude to maybe bring it back in the second half? What do you think?
Well, this is going to be tough because, I mean, what I would like to say is that, I would like the Philadelphia Fusion to change up the pace and just go a completely different style and maybe rely a bit more on the Genji, etc. But it's going to be hard, especially on a map on Rialto, where we've seen teams like the Valiant last week, where Shax on the Tracer was just dominating against the Mayhem. So this is really a map where you want to continue playing the Ashe and Tracer. And I don't think that is going to help the Philadelphia Fusion at all. So this is going to be a very tough map for the Fusion. And I do expect them to stick to the same composition they've been playing throughout with the Widowmaker and the Tracer.
Yeah, I do want to add on a little bit as well. There are some substitutions. We have Moth coming out again and Rascal going back to that support and Striker back in the lineup. This is what we saw from them in the first map. So I'm expecting very similar looks. Striker on that Tracer, Arns on that Widow. Philly has to come up with a solution.
Well, let's see if they can make it happen or if the Shock is just going to roll through them and take that third and potentially final map as well. So once again, for all the action, we're handing it back over to Hex and Jaws. The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles Wavy. Big crunch, big flavor. Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome back. This is the Shock versus Philly. And this was the match to watch, but it might just be over in the blink of an eye. Shock currently just steamrolling over the Fusion. We'll see if Fusion can come back with something spicy. We're going to King's Row up next.
I have Rialto on my screen, but you might be right. We could be going to Kings.
It is Rialto. It was Kings, and then it changed over. It's Rialto. Don't listen to me.
Sorry to correct you on air, but yeah, this was the match that we all really expected to be the match. But I guess it just really shows the dominance of the San Francisco Shock. I guess now, if you're a huge fan of the league, like you should be, like we all are, you're looking forward to San Francisco versus Shanghai. Shanghai has been exerting their will onto people as well, but I mean, Philadelphia, I don't know how you come back to this. I think the meta actually kind of hurts them a little bit, especially when you're going to run a team that would prefer to run a Widowmaker because Carpe is their best Widow and their best Tracer, and you can't play them both at the same time. We do have some subs coming in, though, Jaws.
Yes. Strike it in, Rascal out, but Psych, Rascal in, and Moth out. Rascal is actually just switching to support again, so we're going to see the Ilios team back on the field on Rialto. Does mean we're going to see Tracer and probably going to see Widowmaker.
Yeah, I mean, Rascal is just MVP candidate, and I had him MVP candidate because it's not that he just excels on one role. He is the most valuable piece to a team. He can come in and he can play whatever you need him to play. You can DPS, and he plays so many damage healers really well. He can come in and he can play, obviously, the Baptiste if needed, but Violet's BAP is so good, and then you still have Twilight. Twilight's on the bench, by the way, and then he can play the Brig. Yeah, we were talking about the bench players like Super and Moth, all pros from last year, who would lead the league in so many stats. Bench, Twilight, bench. Like the San Francisco team, yeah, I'm out of words. I mean, this is I have 2 degrees in English, and I'm absolutely out of words to describe this San Francisco team and how the roster has been built. We'll see if they can close it out. Jaws, if they close this out, it means they would have won all 3 of their games for qualifiers in the Summer Showdown and swept all their games against Washington, against Paris, and now against San Francisco. They're looking to go 3 and +9 on maps.
This team is the strongest team of all time, hands down. The San Francisco Shock, though, I don't think there's any disputing it right now, unless we see them up against, well, when we see them up against Shanghai, I think that will kind of determine things. That is a matchup. It's just,
but it's the dominance that they've had for such a long period of time, I think, is what makes them the best team. Like, you know, whenever you talk about any team being, or any, like, you say, oh, this is one of the best Tracer performances of all time, I'll get 10 people tweeting at me of like, what about Apex? I'm like, yeah, I'm aware that Apex existed, thank you. But San Francisco has been doing this for over a year now, and they don't look like they're slowing down at all. People are like, well, they're only good at GOATs, and when the meta shifts, they're not going to struggle, or they're going to struggle. Hasn't been the case. Philadelphia did not make any substitutions, oddly enough.
That was probably Wolf on 10 of his Twitter accounts. There's no substitutions for Philadelphia Fusion. Let's talk about that real fast. Because Alarm, if you remember, had the #1 stat for healing in Baptiste, but of course we're seeing Boombox on Bap. Questions are arising around that. I'm gonna be real. Alarm's Brig, I can imagine, is fairly good, but his Baptiste is one of the better Baps in the league for sure.
Yeah.
Kind of curious on the thinking behind that. Of course, there is a game plan for that for sure. Maybe no one else can play Brig as well as they can play, as well as Alarm can. Moving around this first corner, just like Shock, I'm going to take the high ground fairly quickly. Duel of the Tracers as Striker and Carpe at heads with each other. And Arns, of course, facing up against Hisu on the Ash. This is going to be all about Arns actually getting an angle. It's way easier for Hisu to do that, but Striker's going to take him out. This is a big opportunity now for Arns to set up pretty easily. Not too many people that can kind of run him over now. Immortality Field goes down as well as that window. Striker's still doing a lot of damage to the back line. No one can stop him at all. Fury at least kills off Arns, so that's 1 DPS now dealt with, but they're still moving the payload, mind you. Smurf is just kind of set up shop. He's camping on the payload. Someone needs to get him off. It's the guy is still moving.
Striker alive.
And the Fusion is still in this dueling Striker in this small room. They've just capped almost. Hisu goes down and they're going to get it. 1 meter remains.
Kind of gets unintentionally spawn camped because the rest of his team is still fighting the corner while the Shocker pushing the card. Hisu died early in that. Choi will die during Flux, though.
Okay, I take that back. I thought they weren't going to be able to touch in time, but luckily Alarm came with the rally. He does die during Flux. They're still setting up shop here. They're going to send the Bob into the back line as well. It's going to be a pain for the supports to deal with. There shouldn't be too much of a problem. You can LOS it around the corner. You can see where they are right now. Bob's going to come through as well. Everybody lifted up to the skies, and Bob is just going to dish out a ton of damage. I don't think the Shock are going to be able to hold on to this one. Not with Carpe on the sidelines doing that much damage. Even picking up Striker almost.
Yeah, he didn't even see him.
Nasty one clip. There it is. The 2 clip will do it. And the Fusion will hold on for the payload for the time being.
Alright, so Philadelphia has stabilized in what looked like it to be an enormous blunder, but they do get back to the cart just in time. San Francisco Shock now with under 2 minutes to go, that long extended fight, are going to have to come in with not a ton to work with here. It's just going to be the amplification matrix. Meanwhile, Philadelphia has banked up some nice ultimates. They're way ahead on support ultimates. And so Alarm's going to have another rally.
They're going to be well, that's not good. You have to go for a complete reset here, I think. Shock have only got 1 minute and 20 seconds remaining. Rialto first is rather treacherous. Getting back to the payload could be kind of a pain.
Striker is behind, and yeah, they must have seen him. Confirm that he's up there with the spheres. Just bounce one off the wall, get a hit confirm.
It's kind of ridiculous how good those spheres are for just detecting people. Striker's going to go for the brief recall, still dueling out on the top side of things, but Carpe has a brick at his back. He's going to go fairly low, and you've got to be careful there.
IF is down.
Just drops in time. Immortality Field was thrown out to try and save it. And now both windows are going to get unleashed too. Sado instantly falls. The straw post bomb is going to get eaten, but does it matter really? Boombox is dead. Alarm almost has rally. He's going to have to pop this as soon as he gets back to the rest of his team.
I don't think
Carpe
you do
is
it.
taken care of. And there you go. It is going to be done. The payload has completed its path onto point number 1, and 3 minutes now on the time back to the Shock.
Yeah, it's a really cool rotation from San Francisco to just push everybody up top and then make sure that they put enough pressure onto Carpe that Boombox felt like he had to use his Immortality Field very early. He threw it up top there, and with that IF down, then it opens up everything else for everybody on the San Francisco Shock. They're able to push that one through, and with 3 people dead, Alarm does a good job of holding on to that rally as Rascal has worked his way even in that ultimate ability.
Big Hulk, big rock. They managed to grab everybody off.
Beautiful Hulk.
Shock grabbed everybody off the high ground. They're not going to make a move, though. It's just to get progress on the payload and force Fusion to kind of fight on the low ground
now.
for the time being. Rascal pops the rally. Everybody's going to be rather tough to take care of, but Alarm is held onto his Hex.
Yes, you can re-engage with the rally, and it's nice to use in a fight. Early rally was one of the only ultimates you ever used without being in a fight, but now you can use it to just tick up and keep getting armor.
Almost perfect positioning there from Striker. He's going to be able to one-clip Hiku. It doesn't matter if he gets the clip or not. The Pulse Bomb will strike him. Striker now so low, but he's going to receive an armor pack just in time. Jesus Bob gets taken care of, and now Bob for Shock. Another tool that Fusion have to deal with. Answers on the high ground. He's just clicking heads. Nothing's going to stop him now. A quad kill for the Shock, and they move on to second. They're going to get the cap. And Fusion, they got at least a Flux to deal with the oncoming onslaught of the Shock. Choi did expend his in that fight, but hey, getting onto third of Rialto can be a very tall task for a lot of teams. This map is very defensible.
The Bob forced out the Immortality Fields. Boombox had to use it just to save his own life, but however brief that was, because then they take down the IF, and Bob is still up, capping the point and doing all of that damage. Let's see if Philadelphia has anything to be able to hold on. It's going to have to be the Flux of their life here. And even then, you have to force out the Immortality Field first.
It's going to be on the sort of Carpe, really, to try and do that, but he's not going to be able to get to the back line. You can see where he's playing now. It's going to be a flank from the Shock. Both windows the single window used. Immortality Field's going to go down for Violet, but doesn't even actually use it at all.
Didn't even need it.
Really scared of the damage coming through. Yeah, didn't really need it because everybody was safe in cover. Hisu's going to get a nice little flank. Caught in a room now. There's no way you're going to be able to escape. You see both DPS go one way and all the tanks and the supports go the other. Hisu waves goodbye to Arndt. Now 2 minutes left on the board for the Shock.
Yeah, the Flux, even though it didn't come through with a lot of kills, really opened up the positioning that Philadelphia wanted to do. They sent a couple to the back line to close off that retreating door, and then they were able to crack all the shields and toss in a nice dynamite in where everybody else was. So the Flux, on paper, looked like everybody lived through it, but they still... Philadelphia followed through with the plan of no matter what, when this Flux goes off, if there's an IF or not, we're all going in. They pick up someone in the back line, and then they lock them in the room, throwing the dynamite, easy kills.
Attempted cheeky flank by Striker there. Got the armor burning up. That's a nice stick on the back, but nope. Boombox is going to use that Immortality Field, and now it's Choi's turn to party. Doesn't manage to get the Flux off, though, however. So they've kind of just stopped both of the big game, but like the both team fight winning ultimates there, the pulse bomb, then straight into the flux with no immortality field. And now they still have Carpe's fully stocked armor, 262 of it, and he has pulse bomb as well. Throws it in the mass of bodies. That is a San Francisco shock, but the immortality field will save them for now. Bob gets sent to the back. They're going to set up this window, a perfect halt onto Alarm, instantly ending his life. Supercharge is still doing a fair bit, but you can see the shock now just pushing onto them, getting this mad flank. They managed to catch out Rascal in the back line, and a Flux will send Choi up to the roof. Carpe's going to be able to spawn just in time to get back to the fight, but Choi is doing so much work in the front, and even Arns there was able to pick up a kill onto Carpe, forcing him to get off the payload, and, well, forcibly by just killing him off, and they were able to get the cap. They still had a little bit of time left in their time bank as well. The Shock are just running around Fusion, like they're kind of out-rotating each other, it feels like, some of the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really cool rotation to go through that doorway with both of your tanks, and it seemed like the Philadelphia tanks were none the wiser to it. No one alerted them that they were coming through, and you saw both of the pets in the world, a leftover term from World of Warcraft, both the Supercharger and the Immortality Field were sitting there easy pickings. They take those down, then a ton of damage comes in through, which forces out the Flux response from Fury, but Cherryhoben had Grasp up, and a lot of the damage you take in the air when you're getting Flux is from the hit scan on the ground, so he just lives right through it, actually comes out healthier than when he went into it, which is funny how that works. And they're able to complete Rialto with 30 seconds left. It's a hard map to finish.
We talked about it before, but the mentality for Fusion, how they're going to come back to this, because it did look so defensible on first. Let's have a look at the replay though. Striker in the back line. You can see how much work he gets done, and this is why. Oh, I see what he was doing. He was tactical crouching, then double headshot.
Smurf picks up the mantle, though. Smurf was strutting on the Orisa, and then he decides, you know, just 2 legs is not enough for leg day. Let's go quad leg day.
I mean, you can see why he's #1 in the league for final blows, right? He finds these ridiculous flanks, and his aim is just so good. Tracer being one of the best heroes to finish people off when they're damaged from Dynamite. Oh my word. Can we just keep it on Arns, please? Just keep the camera on Arns. I want to see the
Widow's Kiss. The Widow's Kiss and then the Pink Mist. It's just been Arns all day.
How are they going to really stop him here? Remember, he's super 4-hex. Did switch over to Widow to try and counter him, but it's seeming like an impossibility. You might as well go for Ash and help Carpe pick up the kills and hope and pray that Arns doesn't hit heads from this range, which is almost impossible, really. There you go. There's a nice little headshot. The rock almost finished him off there as well.
I mean, they are running double shields, so in theory, you don't think that Arns should be able to get anything done, but at least every, several seconds, he can be able to grapple up and take shots over these shields.
Carpe in the back, giving the duel. Someone heal Arns, please. Receives the armor back just in time, as well as a couple of right clicks from the back, but that does mean the tanks weren't getting healed in the front line. He kills Alarm yet again, knows where Carpe is, tries to go for the flick shot, but doesn't quite get it. Everson G Widow, he's trying, but it's a hard-fought battle against Carpe. Some of the best movement in the game for sure.
Choice still sitting behind all alone. He takes out 2.
He's going to flux people up as well. Carpe managed to dodge it just in time and kill off Arns. He was dragged down from the high ground. Choi is going to find yet another kill. They might be able to get back into this. Choi has found 4.
Yeah,
this is absurd. He carried that fight when he had 2 people down on his team.
He was alone in that back corner that you see in the center of your screen right there briefly, and he was able to take down 2 people by himself. Violet comes in just in the nick of time, be able to save the rest of his squad, but Choi did that all alone, brought it back completely, ends up with a 4 spot during that about 20-second sequence.
Shows the star caliber roster.
Yeah, I mean,
oh, you want to carry the team? Oh, we'll just get Choi to carry now. Okay, yeah. Arns, your turn to carry. Striker, your turn to carry. Smurf, your turn. It's just ridiculous. It's just absurd. I mean, Philadelphia Fusion, you could say the exact same thing about their squad as well, to be fair. But they're just, at the moment, getting outclassed in the tank line, I feel.
Yeah, you could say it about Philadelphia, but it wouldn't be quite the same.
Well, that
the
was
only person,
that.
The only person who can stop Arns is Arns himself.
It's okay. Choi's gonna carry. It's good. He's already
he's just too hot. He's got to cool down.
Yeah, he's got to cool off. That was
the gun's overheating.
Striker, please don't lose this. Oh, he's on high ground. It's okay.
It's got recall. It's got recall. You can do whatever you want when you have recall up.
Okay, it's okay. Arns is back, guys. Don't worry. Took a dip.
There's only $110 left on this clock here, and Philadelphia is now nearing towards ultimates. It is time to hit Q or go home because 1 minute is really only time for one good fight. They're going to start it with a window to try to do some shield crack, but San Francisco's just going to fall back. Well, that was an interesting little interaction.
Yeah, he wants to get down there ASAP. Flux and the Halt.
It's a nice Flux.
They managed to catch Violet. Arns kills Carpe on the side. Striker hits the Pulse Bomb as well. Perfectly placed. Oh my word. Now they have no Immortality Field. They've got no Supercharger. And Arns has a perfect sightline on the Fusion. They just managed to scurry away in time, and they're going to claim high ground. 35 seconds remains, and Striker is down.
Yeah, Jesus also got sights here too. He's going to try to have to equalize. Hits a nice headshot there, some early damage, and clean up from Alarm.
Smurf there. Yeah, that was perfect positioning. The flank around from the Fusion while Hisu sets on up. Alarm finds 3 kills in the fight, and just like Shock's attack, they do manage to finish it just under a minute.
Yeah, when that payload gets to that point, you're able to take the high ground above the other team, which is really nice. Because also, they did a good job of opening up that point with the window and making sure they could crack shields. That meant the Shock had to retreat to under the bridge, so it allowed Philadelphia to come up. On their way up, they were able to get a couple of nice kills. They took out Striker from that fight. And yeah, this is... Oh,
the boop. He hit the boop and then instantly went for the swing, got 2 kills. It was rather nice. It's very very hard to play around that small bit of ground. Get booped so easily.
Alright, so now Ans has sights here, so Philadelphia's just going to wait it out. I mean, there's some Widows that maybe you peek a little bit, not at the Overwatch League level, and not Ans, not how he's playing today.
Hisu, of course, not on the Ashe anymore.
Yeah.
They decided to change off the Summoner class. I think they're going to move under the bridge, and this is really where the Hisu and Arns battle is going to heat up, because the sight lines around this corner are just going to be absurd, but Arns going to have... there's no peeker's advantage there for Hisu even, because Arns is going to be able to set up rather nicely.
Both windows looking directly at each other. Kind of looked like Portal there for a second.
Man, imagine if we had a Portal character.
Oh, don't give them ideas.
Immortality Field already used. Flux in the small room. Hisu kills a lot. Rascal as well, but this Flux is absolutely massive in the small room. However, both the shields are stopping a lot of that damage to come through. Carpe sitting on the payload. There's a lot of ult charge basically given to him for free. Attempts to go for the melee onto Violet. Grabs the stick. Can he get him an Immortality Field? No, he cannot. Striker ends up going down. A Carpe with a quick melee to kill off Choi. 1 carry dead, but there's still 2 alive for the Shock. But Arns and Smurf are going to have to back off. The Fusion are going to cap rather similar times, actually, for the Fusion and the Shock on Rialto. It really feels like Fusion now have found their footing.
He forced out the IF right there, too. Carpe has put it into 5th gear. I think he knows his team needs a carry kind of potential, too. Also, I've never seen another player in the Overwatch League who has an invisibility cloak like Carpe. There are times where he is just going to town on people and no one even turns around to see what's happening until it is far too late. They're just going to take some free push on the cart. Yeah.
He's got sneaky beaver shoes on. Nice hold. All going for the attempted 1 clip. Melee. Doesn't quite get it, and that's going to be an armor pack and a lot of other healing coming from Violet to make sure that Arns can stay alive. Oh, Choi. Those spheres through the window do a fair bit of damage, although I don't think it was even through the window, to be fair.
Yeah.
And now they're going to take control of this underpass again.
Hey, the spheres just do a lot. Sigma's got a good kit. It's going to be, write that down as the understatement of the day. Sigma has a good kit.
It's like saying Echo. Echo's pretty good. She's pretty okay. Oh, Striker found Carpe's hiding spot.
Well, this is tough, though, because you look at the clock and you look at the spawns and you look where they have to go. It would make you conclude this is very likely the final fight. Especially with all the shields up. I mean, these fights take so long because you have to worry about your position and how you can crack shields, what ultimates you can use to crack shields. And San Francisco's got plenty to work with, but notably they don't have support ultimates. This one could be decided on a Pulse Bomb and a Pulse Bomb alone.
Well, that rally, to be fair, I think Alarm actually has to activate this late. Choi is so close to this
Infuriate that Pulse Bomb.
Ult. Yeah, no Pulse Bomb now for Striker. Unfortunate. Carpe playing a little bit more defensively than he was before. Striker now on the underground, finds the 1v1, but both of them have armor, so it's not going to matter. Oh, and Choi eats that one too. Both Pulse
One good grasp deserves another.
Yeah, disappears into the ether. 30 seconds does remain. The cart is moving back, mind you. They are losing a little bit of time and a little bit of presence here. There's the Flux of Fury. Dashes under cover to make sure he can't get taken out of it, but Immortality Field is going to go down and save them for now. Choi also gets Fury up in the sky, but Immortality once again saving them. Now the rally comes out for Alarm. The late rally is going to be good for them, as they're going to be able to survive all this damage from the Bob. Striker takes out Hisu though, and that's a good start. Sado now throwing everything into the basket, but you're going to have to. A couple of seconds do remain, as the car is going to be contested by the Tracers. However, Fury, with that damage boost from the Supercharge, was able to take out Violet and Smurf. There will be a little bit of time here, though, for Shock to regroup and get back onto this point.
Yeah, they're going to have to win another fight, though. That's why San Francisco was holding forward. It was literally a zoning Bob, too, because San Francisco was all very, very hurt. They will be able to come out with a rally. Meanwhile, Philadelphia maybe gets a Bob, maybe a Flux in this fight.
They're going to need this rally so fast. Oh, Striker has Pulse too. Fury's going to have to go for the biggest deep of his life, but it's not going to happen because he's already used it. The Pulse bomb gets launched in, instantly onto the back line. Immortality Full goes down and saves them for the moment, but not enough to save Fury. They're going to push him all the way back. Alarm has done enough. He's done all that he could. The rally had faded away, and so is the Philadelphia Fusion. Shock hold them just before third point, and they take the series 3-0.
Undefeated in the Summer Showdown qualifiers, the Orange Crush of the San Francisco Shock continues to roll through teams. Even the best teams in the league are not immune from San Francisco. During this 3-0 run to go perfect in our qualifiers, they 3-0'd Paris, and now they just 3-0'd Philadelphia Fusion. I don't know who can contend with this team. I don't think anybody in this region can contend with this team right now.
There's absolutely no way. I think this is where we're going to have to see some cross-regional play to determine the best team in the league.
Yeah.
Currently, Shanghai definitely looking up there, but the performance today from Shock continues their win streak against the Fusion 2. They are now 5-0 all-time against the Philadelphia Fusion after that mean 3-0.
Yeah. There is no doubt about who is the best team in the North American region, and if you still have doubts on it, just watch that on loop until you're brainwashed. You know, Clockwork Orange yourself and make sure that you understand San Francisco Shock is very easily the best team in this NA region.
They sub people out like every map, and they're just like, yeah, whatever, Rascal support now. Okay, Moth's coming in, sweet. And now we have, well, Striker coming in too, and now we can play Tracer. Like, the depth of this roster is absurd. Everybody mentions it all the time, but it's a whole new level currently. I wonder who can actually stop them and take some maps off them.
No, let's also just think about this. Let's think about who they got, who's not on this roster this year now. They got rid of Architect. Yeah, but he's a great player. Last year's Overwatch League MVP, Sinatra, not on this team anymore. Another candidate for MVP or top 5 last year, Super, sat on the bench all game. Moth played one map as Brigitte. Moth, a role star, sitting on the bench. It's insanity. It's insanity how this team operates, how they just keep getting better, and they have an answer to everything. And I think this is a team that I feel very confident saying that they're meta-proof. I can't imagine a meta that pops up that they couldn't play and play at the highest level.
Let's jump over to the Philly real quick and give them their dues. I mean,
it was tough with this match today. I mean, Carpe...
Yeah, it was the toughest match I think they've played in a long time against the Shock. Carpe, I think he ramped up towards the end on Rialto, but there was nothing he could really do on Ilios. He got taken out by Arns, was getting checked by Striker all the time. It's very hard to stop a player like Carpe, but when you have DPS like Arns and Striker and Rascal, it seems pretty easy. He's their best player for sure, but unfortunately we can't just clone Carpe, although Hisu... I wouldn't say he had a bad game, but he did feel sometimes invisible.
No, but it was, it wasn't the games that we've seen from Hisu before. Like, we've seen him dominate on Ash. And it's extremely difficult for Carpe because he could maybe check Ons a little bit better, but he's got to play the Tracer, and I think Philadelphia maybe has to make some choices on this roster. If this is going to be meta, it's definitely going to be meta in the tournament. We have no hero pools, but I think we knew this from the first 2 minutes of this series, Jaws. Ons is going to be our player of the match.
Yeah, our Xfinity player of the match. Of course, it's Ons. What better person to give it to, really? The Widowmaker Supreme and the hit scan extraordinaire as well, mind you. Just surrounded by just fantastic players that can set him up. Widowmaker is... You can pop off as Widowmaker. You definitely can. You can click heads. But if you're granted the space by your tanks, your supports, even your other DPS, it just makes your life so easy. You're able to just set up shop on the high ground like we saw on Lighthouse, and he was undisturbed throughout the entirety of it, and that really makes for an exceptional team and a Widow player too.
Yeah, and with that loss from the Philadelphia Fusion, it knocks them down into third place right now in the standings. I mean, no surprise that the Shocker are the only team that is 3-0, so they will be the first seed. All the top 4 teams get a bye in the first week, but that first seed means that the San Francisco Shock, when all of the other teams are, all the quarters and everything are settled, they get to pick their opponents as well. So San Francisco Shock, 3 wins plus 9, a perfect qualifier. Fusion dropped down to that 3rd spot, and if you're an Atlanta Reign fan, got to be pretty happy with the results because they sneak in based on the map differential now, because Fusion getting 0-3 drops their differential down to +3, 1 below the Atlanta Reign. So Atlanta Reign's sitting sweet in that 2nd spot. And Atlanta, I mean, just briefly, they looked better than I've seen them play in a while. They look good today.
Oh yeah, they look exceptionally good. Baby Bay on fire as always, it seems, and on fire in the chat. I mean, that's always nice to see as well. That's some of my favourite parts of the Overwatch League. I'm not going to lie, with the chat being active, it's always funny to see the BM. I think he tweeted at them. He's like, it's all in good fun, and Shockwave's a great player, etc. Yeah. So exactly.
If you take it seriously, then you're taking things way too seriously.
It's all fun and games at the end of the day.
Yeah, quite
now,
literally.
how Shock really going to go up against people like Atlanta? Well, if they perform exactly like they did today, it looks pretty hopeful for them. I want to hear from Moth, though. We're going to jump over to Zoe for a quick interview.
Thank you so much, guys. Moth, thank you for joining us, and congratulations on yet another W.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I gotta be honest with you, it was really hard to even think about real game-relevant question, because that was a quick one. You made it look so one-sided. You made it look like an actual walk in the park. Actually, I take that back. I feel like a walk in the park feels more difficult than what we just witnessed. What was the game plan coming into this? Did you expect this to just be such a smooth ride?
Yeah, I mean, we've put in a ton of prep work into our Widow Tracer and Ashe Tracer comps going into this weekend. I think a lot of teams realize that Tracer with the armor pack is super strong this meta, so we kind of expected most teams to be running that, maybe a couple teams to throw in a Genji here and there, but our preparation went really well, and the match went as planned.
We did see a lot of teams actually very heavily bunking on that Genji. Do you think that is a better comp per se, or do you think it just really depends on the map?
Both comps are definitely really strong. Genji's certainly has an advantage on maps with a lot of high ground, like say Watchpoint Gibraltar. But for us, we felt that the Tracer was a pretty consistent value all around, and the Genji relies a lot more on getting picks and building his blade.
I mean, you guys are coming in with confidence, as you just said, but everyone watching, I mean, we expected this to be the game, right? Like, we talked about Shock and Fusion going up against each other for quite some time now. It is the match we wanted to see already in the May Melee, and we hope to see in the finals for the Summer Showdown. After this, maybe not so much anymore. Is there any team which you think can actually make it look close against you?
Well, we expected Valiant to be super strong this meta because of how strong KSP and Shax are, but after their loss to Paris, I think the team we're looking forward to the most is probably Mayhem again, since that's who we met last finals.
That's fair. Now, I think Hex already mentioned it just when they finished up their cast. You're going to be one of the teams which gets a bye in the first round, and then afterwards you are getting to pick your opponent. Are you having your eyes on a specific team already?
Not really. I think we'll just pay attention to how the matches go, and we'll look from there.
All right. Well, we have a qualification match coming up between the Washington Justice and the Boston Uprising, so let's maybe end this interview with a quick prediction. Who do you think is going to grab this one?
I think Boston will take it. I think they've been improving a lot lately, and I think they'll have it.
Well, let's see how it goes. Oh, actually, we have a few scores to settle on our desk as well. I need to ask you for your favorite ice cream flavor. This is really important.
I like mint chocolate chip ice cream the most.
Oof. Okay, that's a hot take, I'll tell you that. But we take it regardless. Moth, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're now heading into a very quick break, and then afterwards we are back with our Summer Showdown qualification match between the Washington Justice and the Boston Uprising. Don't go anywhere.